I'm Andrew Phillips and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to insulate your attic ceiling or even a cathedral ceiling. And I'm going to show you the steps needed to properly insulate that. So let's go ahead and get started. For starters, you're going to need insulation and you're also going to need the baffle. And that's especially if you're doing the ceiling of your attic, which is what we're going to be focusing on in this video. Doing the walls and stuff is not as hard because you're pretty much just laying the pieces of insulation in place, working around the electric, stapling it in. But if you're dealing with the cathedral ceiling of the attic, you're going to have to be using baffle, and we're going to go into that on how to vent it properly. And you're going to be needing to use the proper insulation, which is either the R30 or R38. For this video, I'm using R38 because it also has sound dampening in it. R30, I believe, is the same insulation as far as temperature goes, and it is cheaper, so you have to figure out what works best for you. Now, if you're doing the walls on your attic, the outer walls, I'll put along the bottom the different rated insulation that's required for that in order to do that properly. Now for a couple of the other things that we're going to need as far as the accessories like the hardware and the apparel and things like that, let me show you what else you'll need for this video. Now these are the items that you're going to need in order to complete this video. First of all, you're going to need up here either a sweatshirt, a long sleeve shirt, something to cover your arms, that way your skin's protected. Next, you're going to need a staple gun, whether it be an automatic one or in this case here like a manual one. You're going to need some kind of eye protection, a breathing mask that's made for dealing with like insulation and like construction, things like that. Not like a COVID type mask, but one like this. Next, you're going to need a measuring tape in case you need to measure any of the distance to make everything fit properly. You'll need some kind of cutting tool, whether it be a blade or some scissors, but you'll need something to do some cutting. And then last but not least, you will need gloves to protect your hands as well. So let's go ahead and get all the equipment on so we can get started. The first thing that we're going to be doing is installing the baffles, which are going to go here in between the rafters, and that basically is to keep the airflow moving. On your roof, if you look from the outside, and here's a picture, you have what's called the Eaves Vents, and basically you have those vents that are on the outside of the roof. They allow airflow to come into your attic. Then you have another vent that goes across the top of your attic. Here's an image. And basically what happens, the airflow comes through and it allows your attic and roof to breathe. Once you finish your attic, you're sealing that off. Well, you don't want to put the insulation directly in here because then you're going to trap moisture inside the insulation up against the wood. You can cause moisture buildup and the wood can rot. You can get mildew, things like that. So that's where these things here, the baffles, come in handy because I've already installed them here on this side, but I'm going to show you some close-ups on how to do it. But basically, you're putting it in with this channel like this, and it goes up against the wood, so that way the airflow can still work its way through here. Even though the insulation is here insulating the attic itself, the air can still flow all the way through and go up to that main vent at the peak of your roof. Or in this case, I'm going to show you, we're going to be not taking the insulation all the way up to the top. We're still going to leave a little pitch in there that's going to be open. So all we're doing is pretty much leading the airflow to that area where then it can still breathe out. So that's what you're going to be putting in first. You're going to be installing these baffles. If you don't put them in, you're looking for trouble. The right way to do it is to keep that airflow still breathing. So what you're going to do, you're going to take your measuring tape. First thing is you're going to have to measure this distance here between these two wooden beams right here. And then there's different sizes of baffle that you can buy. So once you have your measurement, that'll determine what you're going to purchase as far as the baffle. For this one here, this is the size I need. But for yours, it may be different. Here's some images of different baffle that you can buy. All right, so now that you have that, you're going to start putting that in with your staple gun. But as it meets the bottom, what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to cut the baffle and form fit it so that way you kind of seal the area off where the insulation is. And let me get a close-up and let me show you how to do that. So the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to take our measuring tape and we're going to get a measurement here of that drop right there. So we're looking at approximately probably 7 to 8 inches, which is going to take us from here to here. So we'll have the baffle come down and then we'll cut it to drop, so that way the airflow can still come up and then hit that opening in the baffle and flow properly up. Let's measure the 7.5. So that's going to put us approximately right about here. I'm just going to come up to this seam. That's the 8-inch mark. So we'll just go ahead and cut that with our scissors, or you can use a blade. Cut it right there. And then now what we have it'll fold right on that edge right there. So then we can go ahead and bend this accordingly, so that way we can tuck it down in. And then if we're looking at it here from this side, so you would have your eaves vent here. This is going to wedge in like this. The insulation is going to be tucked in here, so the air will come in, hit this channel, and flow all the way up to your top of your roof there, to the vent, so it can breathe. And the insulation will be within here, so any moisture and air can still flow without getting caught up in there and getting trapped in the insulation. And looking down here, the eaves vent is right on the other side of that flap. So what I've done is I've taken the baffle, brought it down, and then cut it and then bent it down, so that way it's blocking it off. So if we pull back a little bit, the insulation piece will tuck all the way here, and that way the eaves vent has full clearance to come up, hit this channel, and work its way up without getting caught up in where the insulation is. But that's how you pretty much want it to be. You want to kind of seal that off, and let me show you how to do that. You'll then take the baffle, slide it all the way down in until it wedges, bring it up, and then you're going to staple it in place. Now, for this part here, unfortunately, I've already installed the baffle, but that's how you would do it. And then the next piece of baffle will then overlap right here, and I'll show you how that goes together. And then you're going to just keep building onto it. You start with your lowest piece first, and then put the next piece, the next piece, the next piece, until you reach where you're trying to vent it out to. This is the first piece of baffle that you lay. Then where you connect it, right here you can see how it's been overlapped right there, but that's how you want to do it. And then you see how it's stapled in place, and pretty much you're working it that way, so as the air is kind of coming in, that's overlapping. So if you head it the other way, the air would still leak out, so you want it to kind of flow through. And then once you get to the top, you'll measure accordingly and then add whatever piece is needed to finish it off. And this is how I'm going to finish my attic. You can see you have the supports coming across here. Here's one here. We're going to take the insulation probably right up here. We have the baffle going beyond it, because then once it caps off and we put the drywall for the ceiling, we're going to then fill it with insulation. So we want that high enough to clear it, so that way it can still funnel all the way up here to the main vent right there in the middle. And that way all this area right here will be open, so the airflow can flow through properly. Now that we have all the baffle in place, as you can see there, now we're ready to start putting in the insulation. So we're going to go ahead and put on the proper attire and gloves, goggles, all that stuff for safety protection, and the face mask, all that we need, and then we'll start laying this in place. And now that we have all of our gear on, our gloves, long sleeve shirt, we have the mask, everything ready to go. We'll put the goggles on, and now we're ready to start. Tuck insulation in between rafters and then pull the flaps down and use your staple gun to staple it to the inside of the rafters and secure the insulation in place. Okay. All right, well, this pretty much wraps up this video on how to install insulation on your attic ceiling. The same would also be if you're installing it on a cathedral ceiling. I hope this video was informative for you. I hope it helped you out. I hope that any projects that you're working on that you were able to find this video useful as far as installing the insulation. Please send me any questions, any comments. I would love to hear from you. As always, I appreciate all the support. So please like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you next time.